Hello folks, and welcome to our second episode of my utility vehicle build tutorial series, where this week we are going to be working on a scissor lift. Now, unlike the previous tutorial, the cherry picker, this is a build that I've put together and designed myself. So whereas the cherry picker was one that is kind of my own little rework of Splitsy's design, this one is all me. Now, again, like with the cherry picker, this is geared more towards people who are working in scenarios where either they don't have jetpacks at all, or their jetpack is severely nerfed, especially on higher gravity planets, or for people that just want, you know, a safety fallback for, you know, if they're someplace where they anticipate running out of hydrogen frequently. Obviously, you know, even if you don't fall into any of those categories, you know, you're more than welcome to try out this build, as some of the principles with it can be applied quite broadly to other applications. So, with all that said, let's go ahead. If my game wants to play nice. Here we are. Now, just like with the cherry picker, we are going to work this, you know, with some practical applications here. As you can see with this hangar, we've got a nice line of lights that go across the roof. But, you know, from the ground level, you know, you can't get to these to weld them, fix them up, anything like that. You know, I would have to get up, you know, on top of these cargo containers to get to some of these. And even then, that's more so just because these are a larger light. You know, a regular interior light I could probably get to, but only just. Now, there are, of course, ways in-game that you can get around this. You know, you can use scaffolding, but sometimes that can be a little more unsightly. Depending on how you have to put it in, a lot of times you end up just ripping it right back out, which if you are running mods like Scrap, that does end up costing you some resources. Also, you know, while you can design things to have integrated catwalks and scaffolding, it's not always the preferred look. So, you know, having something like the cherry picker, you know, this is good for outside projects. However, trying to maneuver the basket and boom inside of this hangar would not be the easiest prospect. Something like a cherry picker is going to be much easier. And that's actually exactly what we're going to be using to add some lights to these two hangars. Because as you can see, they're both, you know, relatively dark on the inside. You know, I do need to repaint a few of the interior details since I did a Control-Shift middle mouse to repaint these. But we can do that once we get our scissor lift set up.
No energy.
And as soon as I recharge, because even in creative, you still lose suit power. Alright, so let's go ahead and set up our hotbar. Now, for this, we're not going to be using the large batteries. We're going to be making use of the small batteries, because this is a fairly small, compact build. And then we're also going to be making use of the full 3x3 wheels, at least in this instance. You can use the 2x2s, but because this does tend to be, you know, this is going to be a more top-heavy build, I feel that the stability provided by the 3x3s is a touch more necessary. course, we're going to want our gyro, our antenna, our remote control, landing gear, piston, hinge. And then we're going to want rotors. Going to want buttons. You know, this is going to toggle things for the height on the scissor lift. And then we're going to want a small connector to be able to recharge. So let's go ahead and get things put in. So we're going to start with a pair of small batteries, and onto here is where we are going to attach our wheels. Now, off of this back end, we are also going to be putting our locking mechanism for this. But for the time being, this is how we're going. You know, we can't quite fit that in while it's still attached here. So that's going to come after we detach this from the base. What we can add on here, however, is... see. Now, unfortunately, I don't have this fully memorized, so we are going to be making use of some screenshots I have from my previous build just to refresh my memory on some of this. Okay. Since I'm getting just slightly ahead of myself. Now, off of this, we're going to build 4 wide with armor blocks. That's the one bit I forgot. We are going to want some blast door blocks, and this is going to be for some of the clearance bits. So we're going to build out on either side 6 blocks. And across the front are put some light armor corners. Our wheels and another pair of batteries. And then once we got our piston all set up in here, I will double check my clearances. And I believe we're going to have to, you know, we'll want to run some more blast door blocks up here. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and set in our piston. We'll get that attached there. And onto the end of that, we're going to go ahead and use the blast door corner to get that attached. On top of this, we are going to place our hinge. Place one there, and we're going to place another one here. And now this is going to be where having build vision becomes very, very helpful with this build. So on here, we're going to place 5 light armor blocks. On here, we're going to place 2. Then a rotor. And then 2 more. Then on top of each of these, we will place another rotor. Now, for this one here, what we're going to do is we're going to take off the rotor part. And we're going to come over to this one, and we're going to place the rotor part there in the center. So we'll take this, angle it in. Take this, angle it in. We'll bring that rotor displacement back just a little bit. We're just going to bring both of those in until we get this lined up. You're going to want this lined up as close as you can get it. So take this, we're going to move back ever so slightly, and attach. Now we're going to set this to a minimum distance, because you can see that the piston kind of jerked a little bit. And now these two these two hinges, we're going to turn them off. And we are going to turn this rotor off. So now that gives us the scissor. Now I am going to decrease that maximum distance. I believe 1.8 is good. Nope. See, I will admit it's been a while since I last did this. Okay. So we'll keep this at 1.3 for the time being. We'll bump this rotor displacement just a tad. So 5.5. Then those, and then we'll just repeat the process, except we'll swap which side the rotor is on for this one. 3, we'll take, draw this out. 5, so 2, rotor, again.
Critical.
And 2. Take out the rotor part there. Actually, stuff this one up. So, from the point on the hinge, then we got R2. So we have our point that's attached to the rotor. You start counting after that. Alright, then from here, basically same process. Rotate that in. And, you know, getting these positioned properly is going to take just a minute. So, you know, definitely something to be patient about. Then attach. And then we will turn both of those rotors off, as well as this one. So once again, those will nest down rather nicely. This, I believe I can push this out just a little bit more. Now, for all of these, we will want to go through and set the shear inertia tensor just so that we don't get as much of that bounce. But, you know, as you can see, that, you know, even with this, you know, off the ground, you know, that puts us just about right up into the ceiling. So this is realistically about all you need. Now, for this next part, this is where things do get just a touch difficult when it comes to your alignment. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a hinge here. We'll get that facing mostly flat. And we will put armor block on top of it. Then off this one, get another hinge placed. same process. Except on this one, we're going to add another piston. Now, I have found that this isn't fully necessary. However, it does help just a little bit with some of the overall strength. So we'll set our minimum distance. Like 1, maximum distance 1.4. And this is where another mod that I use comes in real handy. You can do this with just using merge blocks. However, if you have the advanced welding, using the weld pads can be quite useful too. And voila! So around this, we'll once again build out kind of our rough base with this. What's causing that issue? Ah, clipping just right there. Now there's a chance that you'll run into that sometimes. So what we will do is we'll just slap down a control panel for ourselves so that I can then go in, grab our 2 pistons. Reverse. Oh boy, which one did I stuff up? Every so often, if you're special like me, you'll run into situations like this.
Fuel critical.
set that back to 1.4. I see exactly where I screwed this up. Okay. See, normally I'm more put together than this. Because I am getting a little tired of that bouncing. Inertia tensor. And that will eliminate most of our bounce. Alrighty. Off. That hinge off. There. And now that I've actually done this correctly, so this frame you want to build
fuel critical.
around this setup. Like so. And then what I do to help with some of the looks is I will then build fully around the entire thing. And this is to give myself a working platform. And to allow all of this to have free moving space without me having to worry about something getting caught. Now for our little corner sections, we'll make use of some of these half slope inverted corners. Stack those 2 high on either side, and we'll do this on all 4 corners. Now for here, we'll use the half-light armor blocks, give us our side rail there, and there. Now this back end, or this front end rather, so we'll give ourselves space 1, space 2. And this is going to be where we have our ladder mounted so that we can get up and in. And then this front face is going to have our buttons on it. So these we're just going to stick right in. Now that does leave us with this open floor here. And so we're going to use the barred windows. And obviously, you know, you can recolor these to give yourself a nice little bit of contrast. But this gives you a nice walking surface. Now, each of these is going to be to extend, retract, and then stop, you know, toggle power on our pistons. Let's go ahead. For our ladder, we do need a little bit to drop down to connect off of, just so that it aligns properly. And keep in mind that these small grid ladders have a very large collision box when you place them. But there you go. Let's go in, grab two pistons, and these are going to be the scissor lift elevators. So with those set, we can then come in to our buttons. Go to our groups. Set this to retract. Set this to toggle on off. And set this to extend. So now let's try that with that shear inertia tensor. I think some of this might just be some of the area around me not playing nice. There we go. So yeah, one of, like I said, one of the side effects with this is you are going to have a bit of bounce, almost regardless. And so that is one of those things that you kind of just have to deal with a little bit. Now here, before I forget, get that all connected in, and then off the front, we're going to want our gyroscope and our antenna. Then we'll slap down our remote control here on the back. And boy, oh boy, do I hope this doesn't freak out at me when I drop it. There we go. So, for our piston to be able to lock this to the ground, you don't need anything super fancy. I just set it up like
Energy
so.
low.
So that we can then on the underside, well, instead of doing a full landing gear,
Fuel
we'll use
critical.
just one of these small mag plates. Make sure you take that off auto lock. Then we'll make use of the conveyor access here to get into our control panel. Grab our wheels, bump our strength. I think the maximum distance for this is going to be like 0.5. Potentially even less. So set that to 0.2. So set that to 0.6, just to make sure that we can get that good contact with the ground. Go in here, grab this. Set the name of the grid so that we can actually see what it is that we're controlling. Let's just make sure that I've got share inertia tensor on all of those. This, I'm going to want the landing leg, reverse, mag plate, switch lock, antenna on off,
Fuel critical.
does remind me. We also need to make sure that we have our
Energy low.
connector. Which for this we'll actually just slap here on the front. You know, strictly speaking, it's basically just wherever you feel like you've got room for it. Let's go ahead, take her out for a spin. I did forget to adjust on this. Drop the power down a little bit, and we're going to definitely be dropping that speed limit down.
Fuel critical. Energy low.
This is definitely, you know, not a high-speed vehicle. because we are very top heavy. Look at that. So we can come in here. Let's park it right about here.
Fuel critical. Energy low.
And now I can go through. Just color on this real quick. And I can start placing in light posts. And even in a vanilla setting, I can get these placed. And then, with a bit of repositioning, I can go up and weld them up. This also puts me in perfect range for build vision to get them all set up. And just like that, again, minus the bounce, we have a almost perfectly working scissor lift. So, it definitely is a bit more finagling, touch more finesse than the cherry picker. But, for a interior work vehicle, stuff that's going to be used almost exclusively for interior spaces like this, I would say that it is worth trying to build. I personally would say, 100% go for it. Because it does let you get away with, avoiding building a lot of scaffolding. So, with that officially wraps up our second episode of the utility vehicle build series. Our next episode is going to be building a crane. This one is going to be based off of a crane build that Splitsy does, which, I will again, just like with the cherry picker, I will be linking that video in the description once we get to that. So that's going to be next week's project. Anyways, I hope you guys found this to be useful. If you have any questions, anything that you feel like you need me to clarify on or explain further, let me know down in the comments. And until next time, take care, everyone.